Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's health matters we're kicking off with this morning because Hillary Clinton's facing questions over her health after cancelling campaign trips for the next 2 days. It follows a diagnosis of pneumonia. She's 68 years of age. She is the Democratic candidate for president and was seen stumbling yesterday before being helped by officials at a 9/11 ceremony. Mrs. Clinton's recovering at home in New York. Going to be talking to a doctor after this report from Hannah Thomas-Peter.
Hillary Clinton had been diagnosed with pneumonia 2 days before she headed to the 9/11 memorial ceremony on a hot, humid New York morning. It was too much. Forced to leave early, she swayed and buckled, barely making it to the car.
How are you feeling, Secretary Clinton?
Great. After recovering at her daughter Chelsea's Manhattan apartment, Clinton stepped back into public view.
It's a beautiful day in New York.
Reassuring gathered crowds, stopping to talk to a young girl.
Thanks, everybody.
Hours later, her doctor released a statement saying Secretary Clinton has been experiencing a cough related to allergies. On Friday, during follow-up evaluation of her prolonged cough, she was diagnosed with pneumonia. She was put on antibiotics and advised to rest and modify her schedule. While at this morning's event, she became overheated and dehydrated. I have just examined her, and she is now rehydrated and recovering nicely.
Well, you just heard the next vice president, didn't you?
But what happened will fuel long-running speculation promoted by Donald Trump and his supporters that Clinton is hiding poor health from voters.
Every time I think about Trump, I get allergic.
Joking aside, her campaign team knows that real or perceived serious health issues can be disqualifying. That's why they released an extensive doctor's statement just weeks ago describing her physical condition as excellent. Trump's doctor's note is brief and lacking detail in comparison, one reason perhaps for his unusual reluctance to pounce on Sunday's incident as evidence of a bigger problem.
Her health incident this morning?
As Clinton retreated to her upstate New York home for the night, she'll know Trump's silence probably won't last long. He's edging closer and in some cases ahead in the polls, and there's simply no time for either of them to slow down now. Just a few miles away at the local airport, her campaign plane awaits, in theory, for business as usual. It will only get busier as the weeks wear on. Clinton has precious few chances now to recover from a serious lung infection, as the world watches her every move. Hannah Thomas-Peter, Sky News in Chappaqua, New York.
Well, let's talk more to this now. There's Dr. Tom Packer. Tom's not a medical doctor. He specialises in American studies at the University of Oxford. And there he is in our central London studio. Tom, this presidential campaign, it is so gruelling and also quite unforgiving, isn't it?
I think that is generally true, but of course, most presidential candidates, I suspect Hillary Clinton will prove one of them, make it through to the end of campaign in good health. Indeed, some of them, their health actually improves during the campaign due to, I suppose, the vigour.
Yeah, I don't know how, my friend. I don't even know how their voices hold up. We see so many of previous candidates and archive footage, and they are croaky, they are hoarse throughout all of this. But here's the point. From your perspective, how much can the health or perceived health of a candidate impact their chances?
As long as Hillary's story holds up, and she keeps on going. My suspicion is, like most such stories, it will be a 24-hour wonder. She'll be fine. It won't have a big impact. Even if her health is much worse, she is about the least popular Democrat in America. So one shouldn't necessarily assume the prospect she'd have to stand down will hurt her party's chances.
However, and I mean, you seem to be like, you know, you don't come across to me with a bedside manner there, Tom. You don't really, you know, you're just sort of saying get on with it. You see these guys as superhuman. They're just expected to turn up, be there, do it day after day. Now, there are lots of theories that she has what are termed serious health issues. We hear this again and again. The conspiracy theorists are on overdrive on social media about this one. If this does prove to be more serious, what should she do?
If she's too ill, I think the most obvious thing for her to do would be to stand down or say she'd stand down after she wins the election. And I think the most likely people to be chosen to replace her as a Democratic nominee would be Tim Kaine, her vice presidential candidate, or Joe Biden, the current vice president. And I think in both cases, certainly Joe Biden, they're probably more popular than her. So it could conceivably actually strengthen Democrats' chances. Though obviously, it's very rare you want to be running a candidate in the last month or two. So I don't think Democrats want to be in that situation. But I wouldn't assume Donald Trump's president, even if she has to stand down, which I still think is unlikely at this case.
Yeah, very strange scenario that she would win this for someone else. But she was diagnosed on Friday. Should she just have come out? Why wouldn't she come out on Friday and say, look, I've got pneumonia, please forgive me, I won't attend this memorial ceremony come Sunday?
That's a good question. There's two possibilities. One is that this is actually concealed for something more serious they were hoping wouldn't flare up. The second, which I think would fit very well with her history, is they just didn't want to give any info that could be used to suggest her health isn't in good shape. That would be my suggestion. That fits with Hillary. She hates giving out information. She always tries to put the best face on things, and it often flares up in her face. And I think that's probably what's happened this time.
OK, well, we wish her well. It's fascinating how all of this can impact. Tom, appreciate that. Tom Packer specialises in American studies. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, it may become a pivotal moment in the US election campaign, the moment that Hillary Clinton appeared to collapse after attending a memorial service. Today, it emerged the 68-year-old candidate has pneumonia and will be resting for at least a few days. While her team are playing down the illness, her health is suddenly a major election issue. Her Republican rival, Donald Trump, said he'll release his own doctor's record soon. From Washington, Emma Murphy reports.
Good morning. Her health. Hillary Clinton cancels a trip to California after abruptly leaving a 9/11 ceremony at Ground Zero.
As a presidential candidate who sought to play down health issues, the American networks will make difficult viewing for Hillary Clinton today.
Hillary Clinton will no longer be making a campaign trip to California scheduled for Monday and Tuesday.
Yesterday's very public collapse is all over the American media, and it's hardly surprising. A potential future commander-in-chief apparently being hoisted into her van, feet dragging, head lolling, and clearly unwell, is subject to much discussion. Despite being back in front of the cameras within 2 hours, what makes this a major campaign issue is that her team initially said it was a simple case of overheating, only conceding she'd been diagnosed with pneumonia when footage of her at the van emerged.
Are you feeling better?
Yes, thank you very much.
With the 68-year-old recovering at home, her team are now on the offensive, saying that they will release more medical records.
We're going to be releasing that to further put to rest any lingering concerns about what you saw yesterday. I can attest, Andrea, that it really is the case that there's no other undisclosed condition. The pneumonia is the extent of it.
She also lacks the mental and physical stamina.
In a campaign during which fellow nominee Donald Trump has sought to make his rival's health an issue, he was unusually cautious in his response today.
It was quite sad, to be honest with you, and I hope she gets well soon. No satisfaction, believe me, whatsoever.
So far, Clinton has resisted making public too much medical information and laughed off a cough last week.
Every time I think about Trump, I get allergic.
But her political standing means history notes her past, including the concussion which led to a blood clot in 2012. She had to wear special glasses to counter double vision, and that was the second clot she'd had. With just 57 days to go before America decides, the health of the candidates and how open they are about it has just become an even bigger campaign issue.
So, Emma, all very awkward for Mrs. Clinton. Will this continue to be an issue, do you think, in the campaign?
without question, this is going to continue to really dog the Clinton campaign. You know, she has two problems here. This is about illness, but it's also about integrity. She can take a pill to sort out the infection, but she can't take anything to really try and tackle this problem she has in the American people's eyes, that she lacks integrity. And that's been reinforced by the fact that the team were not completely open and honest immediately when she was diagnosed with pneumonia, or indeed when she appeared to collapse yesterday. And Donald Trump, although he's offering kind of gentle words there, make no mistake, he's really out to make the most of this. He says that he's going to make his medical records public this week, and he's also going to go on to one of the major talk shows to discuss his health. The invitation is there now for Mrs. Clinton to do exactly the same thing.
Emma, thank you very much.
Hillary Clinton's campaign team have admitted they could have handled yesterday's health episode better after it emerged that she's been diagnosed with pneumonia. They've promised to release more information about her health, insisting she will be back on the election trail later this week. But how far has it damaged her electability? Before all this happened, the Real Clear Politics poll average put Mrs. Clinton on 45.9%, with her Republican rival just behind on 42.9%. Now, that gives her the narrowest of leads, just 3 points. And instead of campaigning in California tonight, she's at home in Chappaqua. Not security, journalists outside too, whilst for Mr. Trump, it's politics as usual. He's giving a speech in Baltimore. Our correspondent Kylie Morris is there. Kylie.
Well, there are some Trump protesters still here in Baltimore, but Donald Trump himself has left. He's finished speaking. Interestingly, in his address, he didn't mention Hillary Clinton's health directly. He has, though, in other forums today. What he did say we'll come back to in a moment. Hillary Clinton herself is resting and recovering, although we're told she could be out at events within the next few days. It is her campaign team, though, that is very much, I think, licking its wounds today. They're in clean-up mode. They've explained that they could have done better, that they should have acted more quickly to communicate the information that she had been diagnosed last week with pneumonia, and they've promised to release more medical records of hers this week.
She also lacks the mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS and all of the many adversaries we face.
It plays perfectly into the narrative her opponent has wielded against her. At first, her campaign explained Hillary Clinton became overheated at the 9/11 ceremony. She seemingly slumps and needs help into her van. She recovered swiftly, emerging from her daughter's apartment shortly afterwards, strolling into the sunshine, a picture of health.
Are you feeling better?
Yes, thank you very much.
But by the evening, there was new detail. The campaign confirming that days earlier, she was diagnosed with a mild form of pneumonia. New facts to feed the rumours and theories that the former Secretary of State is hiding a serious health problem.
So go online and put down Hillary Clinton illness. Take a look at the videos for yourself.
A bad cough a week ago raised questions, but she took to late-night TV to laugh off any speculation.
This has become one of their themes. Here, you take my pulse while I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Make sure I'm alive.
Oh, my God, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
As for Donald Trump, he'll be the healthiest individual ever elected, according to his gastroenterologist. The Trump campaign's only attempt at providing health records, a rushed 4 paragraphs from Dr. Harold Bornstein, which the physician admits was written in 5 minutes while Trump's limo waited outside.
Proof I got 5 minutes to sit right at this desk and write that letter while the driver waited for me.
The Republican candidate says he takes no joy from Hillary Clinton's illness.
It's very interesting to see what is going on. I want her to get better. I want her to get out there. If you look at my scheduling and compare it to anybody else's scheduling, there's not a contest. So, you know, I found the whole challenge to be very invigorating.
The challenge for Hillary Clinton's campaign now, how to recover without further invigorating her opponent.
Kylie joins us live from Baltimore now. He's just finished speaking. Donald Trump has. Any mention of that illness?
Well, John, no, he steered away from the health issue. Instead, he's desperately wanted to focus on comments that Hillary Clinton made on Friday, which potentially, I think, could be more effective for him in terms of winning voters. She made some comments which she has since apologized for in part, but those initial comments were that half of Trump's supporters belong to what she called a kind of basket of deplorables. They adhere to a basket of deplorables, her language. She talked about racism, about sexism, about misogyny, about homophobia, about xenophobia. thereby categorizing potentially millions of Americans as people who hold these bigoted views. Donald Trump's campaign wants to and has been hitting her very hard on that speech, saying that this is proof that she is a woman of privilege, that her campaign is an establishment campaign, and that she has very little respect for the lives of working Americans.
The disdain that Hillary Clinton expressed toward millions of decent Americans disqualifies her from public service. You cannot run for president if you have such contempt in your heart for the American voter, and she does.
I mentioned that Hillary Clinton did in part apologize for those comments. She said that she mistakenly was being kind of grossly generalistic, but she also reserved the right to call out bigotry where she sees it. I can imagine we will see those comments played over and over by the Trump campaign in the weeks ahead.
Kylie Morris in Baltimore.
How big a deal to American voters is Hillary Clinton's bout of walking pneumonia? In other words, a mild bout of pneumonia. Donald Trump, speaking this morning on Fox News, says he hopes the Democrat candidate gets well soon. Then immediately announced he was going to release his own medical records. Health, he says, is an issue in the campaign, and he'll be releasing what he calls very specific numbers. So everything, it seems, is fair game in a US presidential election. Will Hillary be accused of hiding her health history, diagnosed on Friday, forced to reveal it on Sunday when she was patently unwell? Here's Emily.
This is the Hillary she wants you to know, the fighter, the woman of strength. And this is the Hillary you'll have seen a lot of today, played silently, on a loop. The woozy wobble as she struggles to stay upright, even losing a shoe as she crumples into the car.
The decision by the campaign to extract Hillary from the 9/11 memorial service without telling the pool and without telling any reporters for about 90 minutes was incredibly short-sighted and foolish, given that there were all of these conspiracy theories already swirling about her health.
Her emergency exit from the memorial service was followed by 90 minutes where no one knew what to think.
Unexpectedly left early because of what appeared to be a medical episode.
Is that Hillary Clinton's doctor attended to her at her home in Chappaqua today.
And then the revelation she'd been diagnosed 2 days earlier with pneumonia.
Begin with that breaking news on Hillary Clinton's health. We're now learning she's been diagnosed with pneumonia.
Something that seemed retrospectively to explain this. The Cleveland coughing fit, rescued at the 11th hour with a stab at a joke.
Every time I think about Trump, I get allergic.
So was the cover-up a mistake? Howard Dean, who faced his own battles with the press, says no.
The press doesn't like people's privacy, as we say on this side of the Atlantic, so they resent it. But if you had Hillary Clinton's with the experience with the press, you might want some privacy as well.
And Oklahoma and Arizona and North.
He's the man you might remember from this moment, the Iowa caucus of 2004.
And we go to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington.
The scream that spelled the sound of his own presidential hopes slipping away.
And the whole thing didn't slip away from me because of the I Have a Scream speech. The whole thing slipped away from me because we weren't well organized and we were supposed to come in first in Iowa and we came in third. This is not slipping away from Hillary Clinton, and it's not going to slip away from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's going to be the next president of the United States because the alternative is unthinkable.
Unthinkable for Democrats it may be, but for others the episode will give credence to something started as a Trump conspiracy, that Hillary was too ill to stand. This evening he revealed he'd be releasing his own medical records, showbiz style, live on TV.
This last week I took a physical, and I'll be releasing when the numbers come in. Hopefully they're going to be good. I think they're going to be good. I feel great.
Clinton will miss a couple of campaign days in California to rest. Somewhere, not yet voiced, lurks the question they cannot ask. The constitutional contingency plan if the nominee herself can't stand.
It's very difficult in the United States, whereby presidents and presidential candidates have an existence that is separate from the party, because it is a presidential system rather than a parliamentary system. We haven't had such a close two-horse race for a long time, so the Sanders people would claim that Bernie has some kind of legitimate right to be on the ticket, even if only as a vice presidential running mate, because Kaine would then have to nominate somebody, and how would that nomination be approved? You can't call a convention back at short notice. It would have to be done through some kind of ex officio process approved by the Democratic National Committee.
Clinton's seen something of a narrowing in the polls in recent days. She's still ahead nationally and in most of the battleground states. Convincing the public she's physically fit for office might be the work of antibiotics and a few days in bed. But convincing the public she's got nothing more to hide, well, that's a battle she's been fighting for 2.5 decades, and it probably won't disappear when the cough does.
That was Emily. Well, earlier I spoke to Tina Brown, the former editor of Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, and the co-creator of The Daily Beast. I began by asking her if Hillary Clinton had done herself damage through being secretive by being diagnosed on Friday and simply not telling people.
Well, it's a question of to whom she's done damage with. I mean, politically, it gives rise to another round of lack of transparency. Why didn't she reveal it before? Another example of obfuscation. With the public, I'm not so sure. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of sympathy for a woman who has been brutally, pummeled for one whole year on the campaign trail. And when people learned she was diagnosed Friday, and yet she went on and she did a 2-hour national security meeting, she went on to a Barbara Streisand fundraiser, she did another fundraiser, she went to the 9/11 event. She was trying to soldier on. So in many ways, I think people will say, this woman is valiant, and why is everybody always on her case?
Well, Howard Dean told us, but we didn't have time to put this bit in. Howard Dean said to us, why doesn't she just do things on Skype? Why does she knock her pan out so much? Why does she not use social media more? Why does she have to be ever present?
Well, on the other hand, last night a whole bunch of people on CNN were saying, why didn't she go out and talk to people more? Why was she raising money in the Hamptons in August instead of doing other stuff, where she could have just done things like this? I mean, really, she can't actually win. I think that actually Hillary does feel that connecting with real people and hearing what they have to say is as important to her as her talking to them. She wants to hear from people. She wants to know what America's really thinking, wanting and needing. That's why she goes out on the trail.
Does this stuff really matter? You were saying you weren't sure with the voters, but if there is a constant drip, if indeed she becomes ill again, does this build a picture?
It does, unfortunately. I mean, only 35% of Americans polled by CNN in the last poll said that they thought she was honest or trustworthy. Now, 50%, amazingly, think that Trump is honest and trustworthy. It's not a great figure for either of them, but it's remarkable, given that everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is pretty much fallacious, that he has a higher rating in terms of, trustworthiness than Hillary Clinton. Only 15%, according to PolitiFact, of what Trump says is actually true. Whereas Hillary, it's 50% with PolitiFact is true. So it's a very difficult thing for her, this miasma of dishonesty, very hard to put off, and actually, unfortunately, has taken root.
What are we coming to, though, that we're going to have a disclosure of Donald Trump's medical records, which, of course, apparently are going to be very specific and very detailed, that actually, to run as a presidential candidate, you're going to have full health disclosure?
Well, what's amusing about Donald Trump is that he did do one health disclosure, but it was by a giggling gastroenterologist who said that his health had never, was unbelievably terrific or awesomely amazing or some incredibly unlikely adjective. But, unfortunately, yes, everybody's going to have to, basically reveal, how much underarm hair they have, for the public scrutiny and be told that it's relevant. It's absolutely grotesque. It's become a most brutal gladiatorial bloodfest. And if she's feeling ill right now, who can blame her?
It does seem strange because here we are, Roosevelt was in a wheelchair, didn't make him a lesser president. There comes a point where people make judgments, and here we are in the middle of the Paralympics.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but not only that, I think the one thing you cannot accuse Hillary Clinton of is lack of stamina. I mean, the woman is a indomitable, unbelievable, Sherman tank in energy. In fact, she wore down Obama to a burned crisp in the last election. She went to the bitter end, And then she turned around after having lost and did 250 fundraisers for Obama without so much as a weekend off. So to actually use the stamina point with Hillary is insane, because of it, you may dislike her. Stamina isn't it with Hillary. She actually can outrun anyone.
And should age be an issue at all?
In this moment, I don't think either of the candidates really are old to run for president, because we live in a different era. I mean, Trump is 70, Hillary's 68. They're both getting up there. We've had a much younger president in Obama, but we've also had older presidents with President Reagan. And I do think that actually in this era, this age is not too old to run for president. But I do think it's enormously fatiguing, and you cannot do it without very good health. I think Hillary's health has been fine. I think she is very battered and exhausted right now, for sure. And I think she's had this cough that has plagued her and perhaps has been wrongly diagnosed. I don't know. That is the point that we're obviously all most interested in.
Tina Brown, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, Ron Christie is CEO of Christie Strategies, which is a political strategy firm, and he's a former senior advisor to George W. Bush. Good evening. First of all,
good evening.
Is Donald Trump right to make hay out of Hillary Clinton's health scare?
I don't think so. I think this is a time, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you look at the former Secretary of State and you say that you wish her well, you want to see her back on the campaign trail. Mr. Trump was very, very subdued, actually, talking about Hillary's health today, and I think that's where it should be.
Yes, well, he was subdued at first, but then he announced that he was going to be releasing his very specific medical records, he said, and apparently he's going to be doing it live on television. So he is making a deal out of it.
Well, with Donald Trump, everything seems to be a reality TV show. He says that he had his physical taken last week, which only underscores the fact that he had had a physical before the Secretary of State had her incident yesterday here in New York City. So I think it's very important for the American people to understand the health of their next president of the United States and to ascertain whether or not they have the stamina, they have the physical ability to do the job. For having been in the White House for 4 years, I can tell you it's grueling at the staff level. It's even more brutal for the president and the vice president.
Now, you heard Tina Brown saying that Hillary Clinton has got the stamina of a Sherman tank. She has been Secretary of State. She did all those fundraisers for Barack Obama. Do you think there are doubts about her staying power if she were to become president? Really?
Yes, really. I am very worried about her health. She has not been very healthy this year. She's the first one to tell you that. I think the Secretary of State needs to come out, and this is one of the reasons why I think her disapproval numbers are so high and her trustworthiness numbers are so low. With the Clintons, it's a drip, drip, drip. As former Obama, the Obama administration official David Axelrod said, with the Clintons, just set it out there. Just level with the American people. Say, here's my health condition. Here's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling great. Put it right behind it. But instead, the longer it takes for the Secretary of State to come out with her medical condition, I think the more lingering doubts many Americans are going to have.
Well, interestingly, though, what is the hierarchy of health? Because we know there's lots of Americans have, for example, diabetes. Now, if Donald Trump was found to have diabetes, do you think that would be a problem? It's a condition that affects so many of the population.
No, but when you look at and you hear the fact that she had a diagnosis of pneumonia that went back to Friday, I almost died of bacterial pneumonia, and I was out for several months, and this is when I was in my 20s. And so if I almost died from pneumonia in my 20s, and you have a 68-year-old candidate who's been running around the country campaigning relentlessly, I think people need to know the extent of what type of pneumonia she had and whether she's on the mend. And I would say one other thing. Given the fact that she was here at Ground Zero yesterday, she was shaking hands with people, she was kissing babies, it is an extraordinarily contagious disease. If she had pneumonia, why would she put people at risk, our first responders and babies? That's the question I think a lot of people want to know.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I've been getting away with it